Lex Luthor fried the circuits, bringing his creature to life. There's not enough charge to wake the box.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. This is going to be my new Justice League video. Zack Snyder was making a bunch of big announcements about the Darkseid character and the deleted scenes that he'd be putting back into the movie, so we'll break it down. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing an Amazon giveaway. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know what you want them to do with Darkseid in the Snyder Cut. And apparently Zack Snyder was also hyping up more Martian Manhunter, so I'll explain Martian Manhunter during the video too, because he was in Zack Snyder's version of the story. So just going down the list, starting with number 5. You all probably saw Zack Snyder posting a lot recently about Darkseid on his Twitter. Darkseid is coming to HBO Max. A couple of the official AT&T Twitter accounts were also talking about Darkseid too, and a lot of sites have just been reporting on Darkseid since they made the official Snyder Cut announcement last week. I did a video last week about a lot of the deleted storylines and deleted scenes that they were adding back into the Justice League Snyder Cut. There's obviously that deleted scene in the trailer that I attached to the beginning of this. That's basically Cyborg seeing Darkseid when he plugs into the mother box for the first time when they're trying to use it to bring back Superman. It was going to go down a little bit differently during the version that Zack Snyder was going to do. This is a sort of combination of the theatrical cut and that version of that deleted scene. Cyborg has a vision of him destroying the Earth. But one of the biggest things that got cut in the theatrical version were all of Darkseid's scenes. There were multiple Darkseid scenes apparently. In a little while after the theatrical release, Zack Snyder came out and did a panel talking about his alternate storyline, all the things that he had planned on doing with the character. Kevin Smith also separately talked on his podcast about the original Justice League storyline when it was supposed to be 3 movies. Then after Batman v Superman came out and the studio started to panic, they changed it into 2 movies. There were supposed to be 2 Justice League movies. Then finally, by the end of things, it turned into the 1 movie that we all saw in theaters. The vast majority of the really big Darkseid stuff was going to take place in Justice League 2 and Justice League 3. So this is basically just Zack Snyder confirming what we all assumed. Darkseid is coming back into the Justice League Snyder Cut in a number of places. So 4, the actor who played Darkseid in Zack Snyder's version, or should we say who will play Darkseid in the new cut, is named Ray Porter. It was a voiceover role. He just did an interview just this past week with Lightcast talking about the original Darkseid scenes he did and how he tried to make him feel as otherworldly as possible while still being clear enough that you could actually sit in the theater and understand what he was saying. Best example of stuff like that is the famous Tom Hardy Bane redub that Christopher Nolan had to do on The Dark Knight Rises. Because as much as people made fun of the Bane voice in the theatrical cut, even Christopher Nolan does a funny Tom Hardy Bane voice. But when they recorded all of Tom Hardy's dialogue the first time, it sounded even more confusing and weird. There's an original teaser trailer for The Dark Knight Rises where you can actually hear what the original version of his voice sounds like before they changed it. By the time they got to the last trailer for the movie, they'd already changed everything. But it was super muddy, you could barely understand what he was saying, so during post-production, they went in and remastered and re-recorded a lot of Tom Hardy's dialogue, just so people could understand what Bane was saying during the movie. They didn't really have that problem with Justice League with Darkseid, or even with Steppenwolf. The actor that they got to do the voice for Steppenwolf was actually Kieran Hines, if you couldn't tell who it was. Most of the stuff they wound up changing for Steppenwolf and Darkseid, obviously they deleted all the Darkseid scenes, and then they changed the storyline for Steppenwolf, and then just changed the way he looked with special effects. There was a deleted scene from Batman v Superman where Lex Luthor makes it into the Kryptonian ship, and he gets a message from the ship's AI telling him about Darkseid, the mother boxes, and Steppenwolf. This is actually what Steppenwolf looked like in the Snyder Cut, at least originally what he was supposed to look like. The reason why they changed that to this theatrical version is just because they felt like this was more appealing to general audiences, but because a lot of the money that they're giving Zack Snyder is to finish special effects and change things with special effects, maybe they'll wind up changing Steppenwolf back to the original version of Steppenwolf. But 3, the first really big Darkseid change and deleted scenes Zack Snyder are hyping up with all of his tweets start with the huge flashback scene of the war. The original plan was for this to be a really big Darkseid war on Earth fighting all these people, not Steppenwolf. That's what this scene is, him standing in front of all those combined armies of Amazons, Atlanteans, and humans. In the theatrical cut, the flashback scene is only a couple minutes long. The version that Zack Snyder shot was way longer. Think of more like a short film taking place inside the movie. What was supposed to be happening here, at least in the Snyder Cut, is that he was coming to Earth to conquer and to use it for his resources. You kind of saw a version of that during Justice League Apokolips War, which I'll also talk about during this video too. The armies of Earth come together to fight him off. You have all of the Greek gods who are still alive at this point in history. You have all the original Atlanteans before Atlantis sank into the ocean, so this is meant to be their version of King Atlan. They wound up recasting him for the Aquaman movie, but it's meant to be the same character. And the reason why Wonder Woman isn't fighting in this war is just because she hasn't been born yet. But when this is all happening, apparently Darkseid was speaking a whole lot. They recorded a bunch of voiceover dialogue, so I imagine that will make it back into the movie too. We don't know exactly what he was saying, just that there was a bunch of dialogue that they recorded for it. If you've ever watched any of the animated movies like Justice League, Apokolips War, or the other animated series that have used Darkseid, usually those get pretty close to approximating Darkseid's speech patterns pretty well. It was actually Tony Todd that did the voice of Darkseid during Justice League Apokolips War. Candyman himself. He also did the voice of Zoom on The Flash in the early seasons too. Also, side note too, big reminder, Darkseid is going to be a big character in the upcoming New Gods movie that DC is making based on Tom King's Mr. Miracle comic book. But that'll be completely different from the Justice League Snyder Cut version of Darkseid. The Ray Porter actor who plays Darkseid in the Snyder Cut said that he hasn't been contacted by the New Gods people yet. It's a totally different creative team, but it's going to be a couple years before that movie comes out, so they're probably not going to release any previews for that for a while. If you want to know what's going on in the New Gods movie, just read Tom King's Mr. Miracle run. It's mostly based around Mr. Miracle. Darkseid is just a big character in the background during most of that. But Tom King himself is actually working on the script for that, so it's going to be super weird, so I can't wait to see what they do with it. As for what Darkseid actually looks like inside the Justice League Snyder Cut, just because Zack Snyder himself has been sharing so many of these scenes and images, I imagine this is pretty close to what he's actually going to look like in the cut. Number 2, I've seen a lot of questions about this. What Zack Snyder is actually going to be doing to finish his version of the Justice League Snyder Cut is first to re-edit all the footage he already shot into a coherent cut of the movie. You probably heard the reports that they're turning it into an episodic maxi series, releasing 6 episodes weekly with act breaks. But the reports also state that the 6 episodes would be closer to 40 minutes each, so the total runtime of the movie, if you marathoned it, would still be just a little over 4 hours. So that's what people are talking about when they say that the Snyder Cut is around 4 hours long, but they're turning it into 6 different episodes. The theatrical cut was only about 2 hours long. The Darkseid actor said he wasn't sure whether or not all of the scenes would make it back into the movie, implying that there was a lot of Darkseid stuff that he recorded, but the 2 extra hours worth of movie that they're adding back in is like a whole other movie inside the movie. So I think it's safe to assume that pretty much everything that was cut for all the different characters and storylines is coming back in. There have also been reports about what's going on with them filming additional footage and recording new dialogue with all the actors, people wondering if Ben Affleck is coming back to do more Batman because he's getting super swole. Like, this is what Ben Affleck looks like right now. So whatever he's been doing during quarantine, it has been doing him some good. There's all the other talk about Henry Cavill officially coming back as Superman in some upcoming DC movies. The way that they're talking about it is him signing a contract like Mark Ruffalo's Hulk contract in the MCU, where he crosses over into a bunch of other movies. I just did a video about that yesterday, so I'll link that at the end of this. In number 1, probably one of the biggest deleted scenes that we've learned about is Martian Manhunter. So apparently, Harry Lennox from Man of Steel was supposed to be a version of Martian Manhunter in disguise. Presumably at some point during Justice League, he would have revealed himself. It seems like Zack Snyder is hyping that he might wind up making it back into the Snyder Cut, so we might actually see a version of Martian Manhunter show up in that. According to official reports, what Warner Brothers is giving Zack Snyder money for is to finish editing and special effects on the footage he already shot. That's the bulk of the money, like re-editing Darkseid into the movie in a couple different scenes, recording some new dialogue with the main Justice League actors like Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Cyborg, Aquaman, Alfred, Lois Lane. You get the idea. The only thing I don't think we're going to see is that originally he was going to kill Batman, and I believe that was going to happen during the second movie. Batman was going to sacrifice his life to save everyone, and it was meant to be a parallel for Superman sacrificing himself to save everyone in Batman v Superman. But like I said before, if you're wondering what was going to happen in that original version of the 3-movie Justice League plan, a lot of that plays out very similarly to Justice League Apokolips War. Now, that movie is a little bit different. Obviously, the animated people are doing their own thing, but some of the plot elements of that are very similar to Zack Snyder's plans for his original Justice League trilogy. But if we get any other news about that, or they release any more teasers or previews, of course I'll do a video about it. Leave all your requests in the comments below. Everyone click here for the Justice League Snyder Cut teaser trailer, and click here to learn all about what's going on with Henry Cavill coming back as Superman and Man of Steel in the DC movies. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe. I'll see you guys tonight.